Hope everybody is doing well and is actually having a great Friday and all in that space. We actually just started a new show today, so we're going to talk about that in a minute since it is a historical show. And that was actually what I was listening to in the background earlier, and hopefully some of y'all were watching it and all in that space. But we'll get to that in a minute. First, we're going to get to the news and all in that space. Apparently, the fine folks over there in Russia managed to bomb their own city. So apparently they did it accidentally. So that is one of the things that we are hearing from over there in that war in Russia and Ukraine. The Russia Air Force accidentally bombed its own city of Belgorod. And I also read in some reports earlier that there have been reports about Putin having various sorts of nervous breakdowns, having some things going on with his medication, and maybe even being around in diapers. Yes, that's one of the reports that I heard as well. So there's all kinds of things going on in that space, and who knows whether that will cause the war to intensify or what's going to happen in that space or what's going to be going on as that continues to go on in that realm. And of course, there are other things that are taken as well. The Supreme Court is to make ruling on the access to the abortion bill. So they had the decision around Roe versus Wade, and they're expected to make a rule on the abortion pill as that access lawsuit is in place as well. So we're going to see how folks react to that and whether there is any sort of either kind of pushback or folks are liking the new law or what happens in that space. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space. I do understand that in another bill put out by Marjorie Green, she has put out a bill that is definitely saying that the transgenders cannot compete in women's sports. And apparently there is a good chance that that will pass in the House. They're saying it'll pass along party lines and along that kind of space. And then we'll find out whether Biden either endorses it or does not endorse it, and how that goes in that kind of a situation. So we're going to see how folks react to that, and of course, we may have some conversation about that as well. So that's some of the things that I was seeing in the news, and of course, there's all kinds of things that are happening regularly. We did talk about what happened with the explosion on yesterday. We actually reported it as it was happening, and apparently, Elon Musk loses 13 billions in 24 hours after the SpaceX rocket explosion and the disappointing news around Tesla and some of the other things that he is very much invested in and all in that space. He is still the richest man in the world from what I'm understanding. So I don't know that 13 billion is going to make all that much of a difference, but I'll bring Nick in and see what they think in that space and what else goes on along those lines as well. So, and we are also seeing that the U.S. might be deploying more troops to Djibouti because of a possible Sudan evacuation, because there's definitely things that have been going on in that government, and definitely there is conflict going on in that way. And we're going to see how that plays out as well. And it does look like Alex Baldwin's criminal charges are going to be dropped in the trial over the fatal Rush shooting. So that is something I know that even we were having a conversation not that long ago, and Lee had mentioned about some of the rules, Lee Newton Rhodes, with some of our folks that are in the filmmaking industry and all in that space. But it does look like the latest news is that those criminal charges at least will be dropped. We do know that there are probably various civil charges that are going on also. So we're going to see how this all plays out and what folks' thoughts about a number of things going on in the world and all in that space. We'll see if I see any other world things other than Sudan and Russia that I want to get to and all in that way. By the way, Uganda's president is saying that he is going to refuse to sign a new hardline anti-LGBTQ plus bill. So that is something that is going on in Uganda. Apparently, there was a bill that was passed in that space, but apparently the Ugandan president is not going to sign into law what was passed by their legislature and all in that kind of way. And the the UK Deputy Prime Minister Dominique Raab has resigned over bullying reports. So I guess he was trying to bully some folks. Hey, what else is new? Politicians are oftentimes bullying folks and all in that kind of way. So we're going to see what folks have to say about that as well. And Ukraine's Odessa is alive and joking. So apparently there are folks that are glad to see that folks are still doing things in Ukraine despite all the things that they have gone through and all in that kind of situation. So I'm going to bring up some of my folks around and see what their comments on about a number of things, including the Muslim holiday of Ramadan, bringing a rare calm and familiar worries to Jerusalem's old city. So tens of thousands were gathering at Al-Aqsa as Sunni Muslims celebrated the Eid holiday. So there is some calm going on in that space. And guess what? The workers are at it, but not here in the United States this time, even though they're at it in the United States also. But strikes are crippling the German rail network and the 4 airports over there as well. So, like I said, getting to bring in some of my other folks. There was an incident in Yemen, and at least 78 were dead in a stampede during the $9 aid event in Yemen's capital. I had alluded to that on yesterday's news as well. So we're going to see what folks have to say, and if there's any other, maybe even unique stories that we want to get to in the news, and what other folks may be having on their mind as news stories also. And I will mention really quickly as I bring in everybody else. So we got Dr. Steve Rouse. So we'll bring in Mr. Steve, and he's probably got some things he wants to talk about as well. So I didn't see you even pop in there, and Nick has brought you in.
Yeah.
I brought in some of the things that I had on my mind, but I know that you usually have your monologue as well. So
yes, I'm gonna. Yeah, I got called into a meeting, so I'm gonna do my monologue on Monday because I need to prepare it. But I wanted to open up today. First of all, just to say that yesterday was a big day in Morrisville, North Carolina. I hosted the Indian ambassador and Governor Roy Cooper in Morrisville to kick off the Small Business Diaspora event, the U.S.-India Business Connection. During this conference, we talked about trade, access to capital, helping Indian businesses, and also connecting them to the Indian markets. During the visit with the ambassador, and also during some time with the governor and the commerce secretary, which I want to talk on Monday, I got a very interesting perspective about India. And in my monologue today, I was actually going through my video. I'm going to be coming in with a monologue. He really talked about, first of all, 3 points I want to make before I get off today, that 50% of India is 26 and younger, which I found to be very amazing. What's also interesting is the digital revolution taking place in India. 1.2 billion people have a digital identity, which means that most things are being paid on through apps and mobile devices, and that broadband and internet is now becoming available in almost every square mile of India. So over 1 billion people are connected to the internet, and this is having a profound impact on their economy. There has been concerns about U.S. foreign policy. He didn't really talk about that, but he did talk about how it is going to be important for the U.S. and India to have a strong relationship moving forward, particularly with the political realities of China and North Korea and the instability in that area. Particularly as China's economy weakens, it's going to be an opportunity for India. The final thing that he mentioned, which I found to be interesting, is normally when we talk about India, we talk about Mumbai, Delhi, the tier 1 cities where many of the big IT companies have resided. But the fact of the matter is that most of these companies are, going to tier 2 and tier 3 cities in India. So these were literally villages 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, even 10 years ago. But now because they're getting internet, they're getting education, they're getting training, they're moving the economy up. His final message was talent. The fact that so many technology and engineers are being produced by the nation of India, there's going to be a great opportunity for community colleges to train the workforces there in India. But there's also going to be an opportunity for the global talent pipeline, which means that immigration policy in the U.S. or Canada need to make sure that Indians that want to come in from that country can do that. So that's really my wrap up. I'm going to really come in with a more formal monologue on Monday talking about what does this mean. And of course, we on World Edition have had talks about what is the unspoken elephant in the room with, well, India's support of Russia, or should we say, not going against Ukraine and working a little bit with this BRIC alliance. And I think that's the sausage making of diplomacy. I get the sense it's about India's economic strategy, and that if we could figure out a way for them to get oil away from Russia, whether it's another country or whatever, then maybe we could wean them away, and that's not a job for me, but maybe our U.S. Congress or U.S. Senate, can have a say in that. So, Mark, I'm going to hand it back to you. I know Alec Baldwin's case was dismissed. On the final note, I do want to wish everyone a happy Eid Mubarak. It's the last day of the Ramadan. I'm actually going to say a few words at their festival here in 10 minutes. But thank you for letting me grace your presence, and I'll be back on Monday.
No problem. And on Monday, we actually have a guest that'll be talking about one of your favorite topics. I've actually had him confirm over the weekend, and Nick, I know, is enjoying some of these guests we're getting, but Marshall Mermail, who is from the New York area. So he's actually down there where Lee Newton Road is, and is with Advanced Resilient Biocarbon, will be one of our guests, and he will be in. And of course, they talk a lot in his organization about turning waste into revenue. So it is talking about using some of the waste that humans make into revenue, and they are definitely part of the green energy kind of space, because they even do a green carbon webinar series that is going on regularly, and you can actually check out their website at greencarbonwebinar.org. But they will be our featured guest on Monday, and you'll also be glad to know that we have a political activist from the Democratic Party that will be coming at us on Thursday, because I just got her confirmed recently, but that is Kelly Jones, because she just wrote a book with her organization about being a forward organization that's got forward in the title. I'm trying to remember the total name of the organization, but it's some life lessons that she's learned from campaigning and other stuff in a new book that she just put out recently, and I just got her confirmed as well. Her organization is actually called To Continue Forward, and all in that space. So she has definitely said that she was available to come on and talk about her book, and the book that she wrote recently about student readiness. And I know a lot of times we talk about education and all in that space, and she has definitely written some space about making sure that our students are ready for a number of things in society and all along those lines. And in addition to being involved in the political space, she has also done some stuff in the educational space as well. So she is scheduled right now for Thursday. So we've got her coming on to talk about things that she has got going on. And last but not least, before I bring in our other distinguished panelists that are the regular one for our usual shows and everything.
I want to wish you all a good show. I've got to run. I'll get this update of Ukraine on Monday. But thank you all so much. Have a great weekend. Good luck. Happy Mubarak to all Muslims out there, and we'll be updating everyone in a formal monologue on the Indian ambassador visit to Morrisville and North Carolina. Thank you all so much, and we do hope to bring them on as guests to ask them some tough questions, of course, in a diplomatic manner. But I know a lot of us do have concerns about the U.S.-India relationship, and I think it's a fair question to ask. And I think we need to use our expertise at World Edition to perhaps, in this case, push foreign policy, which I think we're all well-respected analysts, and we have a role to play in terms of educating these leaders in Congress, which I intend to do as well. So thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend.
See you too, inshallah.
Yeah, appreciate you. The book is actually that Kelly wrote is actually called Forward. It is tangible, the strength-based self-awareness book that is going to be out on it came out on April 1st. So it's already out, but she's definitely getting the word out about the book, and is a strength-based book approach to unmasking self-awareness, effective communication skills, and a number of other things. Like I said, she was involved in the education space, and I was said April 1st. It already been out. It'll actually be out on May 1st, so it'll be coming out not this coming Monday, but the following Monday. So we'll actually have her talk about the book a week before it comes out, and all in that way. So definitely looking forward to that conversation. And of course, most of those guests will be on for about 20-25 minutes. Then we'll get into our regular discussions. And Nick, you may not know this, and then we'll get into the things that I brought up earlier and everything. But we launched a new series today that'll be a new thing that'll come before the Friday World Edition called that I just launched and all that, but it is a historical analysis, and it's called Not Bound to Repeat, because there's that old saying that if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. So that is why I call the series Not Bound to Repeat. And the first thing that I put on today was a debate between William Buckley and the great author James Baldwin. So they were both very esteemed people, and it was actually done in London. So that was what we had today. And then there was, of course, folks are able to make discussions and all of that about what these folks said way back in 1965, and some of what they were saying way back then was even relevant to now. So you can go back and watch it and check it out, and maybe see how the comments played even to today's history, and maybe some lessons learned. I'm going to have to get with Sasha and find if there are some speeches from some of our European folks and some of particularly Eastern Europeans that I need to get and access, since that is the notion, is to bring up a speech or something along those lines that is between 30 minutes to an hour. And in some cases, we'll have analysis afterwards before we go into the news show. But that is something that is recently launched, but it'll be a historical moment kind of a show, because definitely I think that we can learn from history just like we learn from the current affairs.
Mark, we have Sasha on the show today. Sasha, what's up with the airport in Toronto? They're giving away gold?
Yeah, I was quite amazed by this story. This actually puts Toronto on the map, because there's not much happening in Toronto, and people don't talk about Toronto at all. But now with 15 and some people believe $20 million worth of gold heist, now Toronto is prime time, and I can just guess, only guess, just the same as you, what's really happening. Probably it must be insider's job.
Yeah.
Speaking of folks not talking about things, I mentioned in the beginning, but I'm glad you're here, Sasha. And you were involved with that way back when and everything. How do you mistakenly bomb your own city? Because apparently that's what the Russians did. Accidentally bomb their own city. So how do you accidentally bomb your own city?
Smart bombs, Mark.
Well, what can I say? The Russia will be a threat until destroyed. The Russia must go. All Russian armies on territory of Ukraine, they all have to be destroyed. Just killed one by one, and actually the numbers are starting to getting higher again. And there are some indications that Ukrainian attack or counterattack, whatever you want to call it, it's slowly starting. And they are probing Russian defenses in several directions at the same time. So Russians are, they don't understand where exactly the Ukrainian attack will take place, because they are attacking and probing Russians over the all front lines. So that will be very, very interesting in the next few days. You will see further developments, but as I said many times, the goal of Ukrainian army is to defend its territory, number one, protect whatever territory is still left there, to protect it, not allowing the enemy to penetrate it. And finally, it's not to take over the territory. It's to kill as many enemies as possible. Because once you kill your enemies, you don't have to worry about taking your territories back. They will be yours just by default.
Yeah, that makes sense. But speaking of enemies, apparently one of those enemies of the United States that is a smaller country is apparently trying to do a lot of barking. And that's what it sounds like, is a lot of barking, because I don't know that they have any bite to back their bark. But apparently North Korea's foreign minister earlier today called the Group of 7 wealthy democracies a tool for, quote unquote, ensuring the U.S. hegemony, as she lambasted the group's recent call for the North's denuclearization. So I guess we got her to denuclearize, and she's basically going like, fat chance of that happening and everything, because she's also said that they will take unspecified strong counteraction if the G7 countries, which is the United States, Japan, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Canada, Italy, and the European Union show any behavioral attempt to infringe upon the fundamental interests of North Korea. So she had some very interesting words about the G7. She called us a closed group of a handful of egotistic countries that does not represent the joint international community, but serves as a political tool for ensuring the U.S. hegemony. And that is what she said in their state media. So do we really care what she says? And do we?
No, not really. She's
she have
full
any
of
bite?
hot air. Yeah. No one really cares what North
Does
Korea
she-
thinks, right?
Does she have any bite at whatsoever? And do this, or is there just a lot of talk and everything? And she does sound like she is trying to maintain their sovereign rights as well, because we do know that around the world, whether it is in Africa or in Europe, most people are wanting to have a very nationalistic view of their own country. We do know that that has been a rising trend around the country.
Well, Mark, North Korea has been an axis of part of the axis of evil for a long time. They're a rogue country. They're a pock on the mark of humanity with respect to their human rights positions and everything else. Plus, they've been threatening and rattling sabers against everybody with nuclear arms for a long time, and it's like a little Doberman or something barking, so it's like if they ever did anything, they would be wiped off the face of the earth. So it's sort of stupid that they would take the position that they are. I often wonder why in the Korean War we just didn't drop the nuke on them and obliterate them and make them go bye-bye and end that whole conflict to begin with. But it's
who
just
knows, those were
me.
decisions of that time and everything. Apparently there is a major religious force out there that is as well that is making symbolic gestures and overtures toward a certain rising country, even though I understand they're about to be number 2 because India is about to be number 1. But apparently the Hong Kong's Roman Catholic bishop earlier today said he has invited the state-appointed Archbishop of Beijing to visit his city, a symbolic gesture that experts say should strengthen the fragile relationship between China and the Vatican. So is the Vatican going to start getting involved even more in world politics? And do we care that they are trying to have overtures toward the Chinese and the Chinese government and all in that space? Because there's even some folks that would say that the Vatican might be part of what Dan likes to call and refers to as the deep state and all in those lines. And there are some that believe that, there are some that don't, but it's a matter of folks' different opinions. But what is our thoughts about this overture by the Vatican?
Excuse me, I'm surprised about one thing. Mark, you're talking about a lot of not even unimportant things in the world politics, but things that they cannot affect anybody by even the smallest degree. However, you are missing important events, such as the visit of Stoltenberg, the head of NATO, to Kiev, to Ukraine. This is extremely important because Ukraine is getting ready to join NATO. Everything is going into that direction, and that will completely redraw power lines in Europe and in the world, by the way, because now Russia will be completely encircled from European part of it, at least. Starting with Baltic states and Poland and so on. Now it's Finland and Sweden going there. Now Ukraine will be on south. And guess what? There is another very strong alliance is anti-Russian, is the Turkey and Azerbaijan. And Turkey and Azerbaijan, by the way, have a joint army. And that army is extremely strong. So now Russia will be its end of a great political and superpower and second army in the world and all that is going right to the garbage bin. Is no longer there. Finished. So now all you have to do is to defeat Russia. There are some of the plans I've learned there are about 12 different points of attack of oncoming advance of Ukrainian army, and some of that are Russian cities, and I can name them if you wish. It's a Belgorod, it's a Kursk, it's a Rostov on Don, or so on. So the attack will be complete, and the new brigades of NATO in Poland and Romania, they're 20,000 each, fully equipped brigades. There are Navy SEALs, there are air brigades and so on. So they're ready to move at any time, at any point.
No, and I figured, and Sasha, I figured you were going to deal with that in your Ukraine, Russia, China show
Absolutely.
on at 11 o'clock and everything. But I cannot say that religious organizations that decide to delve into politics, no matter what side of the politics, are not relevant conversations to be had. We've even seen that with the Orthodox Church over there in Russia, and if the Vatican wants to get involved in a number of things as well, I don't know that I would consider that necessarily irrelevant or unimportant to talk about. And as Nick has pointed
Yes,
out,
boss,
a lot of
it's
these-
relevant
a lot of
and
things
unimportant.
that we talk about are not being talked about by the other networks, and that's why I brought it up and everything. Of course, I was going to get to the fact that apparently Putin is in diapers as well, because I did mention that earlier, and I did say that that was something that I was hearing, that he might be getting ready to be either killed internally or among his own diseases and all in that space as well, because that was one of the news stories that I had also seen during the early morning hours and all in that space. So there might not even be an issue except for whoever's going to be going in his spot if he's about to be killed by natural causes and by some of the things that are going on in his own health and all in that space, because I did see those reports during the early morning hours.
Mark, could you illustrate the importance of this Vatican latest initiative? How are they important to us, to the network, to the country, to the world? In which way? How? Just
But
show
mostly it's because we're talking about things that other people don't talk about. Like we talk about the economy, we talk about social
other people
justice.
don't
It's just,
talk about it. That means it's unimportant.
no, it doesn't mean that it's not unimportant. It
doesn't
just
mean
means that the
anything.
media has been,
Why you
been
should
bought and
talk
sold.
about something unimportant? I would expect you to talk about, for example, the World Chess Championship, which is going now, by the way, in Kazakhstan, where Nepomniachtchi, Grandmaster Nepomniachtchi, is playing Ding Lijian after the Magnus Carlsen, world champion, refused to defend his title. This is important. You're talking about Vatican wrote a letter somewhere in the
Sasha? Sasha, I love chess as much as you, but it's a game. How is that so important?
Because it's not just a game. It's a game that you can analyze after it's been playing. You can see the beauty of the game. You can
I
see
agree on that. I agree with you on that. But how does that affect world events?
a little more than Vatican's letter, because Vatican's letter is absolutely unimportant. It's complete non-event.
The Vatican is a power, and if the Vatican is a power that deals with a world power, which is China, how is that a
What would I
non-event?
do? Would I go tomorrow to hunt or to play basketball? Like what? Why to me Vatican letter is of any importance? Now the chess world
Sasha,
is
should they
important.
not speak out on human rights?
I'm watching the game for 4 or 5 hours. Yes, it is important to me, for example, maybe to a few other people. Yes,
A lot of people listen to the Vatican, Sasha. Should they not speak out on human rights abuses?
I don't know. If people have nothing better to do than to listen to Vatican, let them do exactly that. I have no problem.
Well, it's China and the Vatican. Remember, China is the up and coming world power. It's not
Exactly.
Russia. Russia only has like 2 cities. I mean,
They got to discuss switching to the
100
U
cities have
yuan.
more than 1 million population. Russia's almost not even a country. It's just a bunch of empty land. So
Well, emptier now.
a bunch of empty land with
war
a
in
bunch of
Ukraine,
nukes.
right, Sasha?
Several years ago, was the name of Russia was not even Russia. It was Ulus Juchi. Juchi was the oldest son of Genghis Khan. So that's what it is. It was 800 years ago, Ulus Juchi, and it's Ulus is like a province or something. So it was the biggest province of at that day, the Mongolian Empire.
Sasha,
And the Juchi was the oldest son.
Russia would be going down the toilet if it wasn't for the fact of China and India supporting them right now.
no, exactly.
Yeah.
And
It would economically be
Nick and
But
Sasha,
here's the
along the
reality.
same.
China and India are supporting Russia. Okay, that's the reality. And we don't want to even look at that reality that China and India are supporting the collapse of Russia. Otherwise, Russia would collapse because they would.
Well, that's important to note in
There's a difference, though,
dialogue, right?
that China is perceived as U.S. enemy, fighting for the.
When they're one of our biggest trading partners. How does that work?
But
We
India,
buy all our
India's
junk
the same
from China,
way.
they're our enemy.
however, India is perceived as a friendly power to U.S. and supposedly it's a part of it's the world's largest democracy. What I've heard, I don't understand how India can be even considered democracy. But if most people think that way, enjoy yourself. Okay, think that it's democracy. In which way?
It's not.
Come on. It's not a democracy. It's a authoritarian state led by this, what's his name?
Modi.
Modi.
Moody.
Yeah, I mean,
And he does
Oh,
get
yeah,
very
democratic
moody. I mean, that's the
Really?
problem.
Modi.
If I was stable, when he wouldn't get moody, we wouldn't have these
You wouldn't
problems.
get moody and everything. But Nick and everybody else, how much do we care? And I don't know, maybe Sasha will think that this is not important as well. But apparently, there is a country in Africa that has also been having a massive war and all in that space. And apparently one of their top generals declared the military's commitment to a civilian-led government. And apparently that was his way of bidding to the international support to get international support, because he's seeing international support going to Ukraine. So he's like saying, hey, why can't we get some of those dollars as well? So he's apparently trying to put in a plea to get some of the United States money. Should that not be something we care about either?
No.
No, not really.
You're talking about the Civil War in
Talk
Sudan.
about Africa.
Been in Civil War forever.
There was an interesting development with Egypt, who was supposed to, according to agreement, supply Russia with some of the ammunition and weapons and so on. And it turned around in the last few days, and now it's supplying its ammunition and weapons to Ukraine instead. So that's kind of...
Why is it that Russia has to rely on Egypt? Can't Russia make their own?
No.
Are they that bloody?
No.
They have
They're
to
using
run to Iran. They have to run to Egypt.
They're using now,
They do pretty much, yeah.
They're using now their tanks built in 1952. There are already second.
That's because they stole all the money and they stole their military budget and used it to buy yachts and apartments around
Well,
the world.
it's money. You're right.
Somebody's got to benefit.
Money is
from
number
it.
one.
That's
But
really why.
technology is number two. They don't have access to any Western technology, period. So they don't even have like bearings that have to go into machinery. They don't produce it. Russians at the point in back, say 15 years ago, when the oil was about $150 a barrel, Russians were saying this: we don't need to produce anything. We produce oil. Oil can buy you any technology, anything what you need, just go and buy. You don't need to produce anything. In fact, in certain way, they were right. Because of the climate in Russia and, of course, the corruption and so on, you cannot produce really anything in Russia. It's nothing that you can produce, because even if you do produce something, it will be 5 times more expensive than any other country. Forget about not even China. The West, the East, nowhere in the world, production of anything is just as expensive.
Well, Sasha, you'll be glad to know that the other news that was coming out of that, in the sense of the U.S., and then I have a question for Dan and them based on something that we were airing earlier on the events channel that we also have here on Pod TV and all in that way. But the United States will begin training Ukrainian forces on how to use and maintain Abrams tanks in the coming weeks. So over the next several weeks, they're actually going to be training folks in how to use those Abrams tanks that were sent over, as it is going to speed up its effort to get them onto the battlefield as quickly as possible. So that does look like there are some soldiers and others that are going to help the Ukrainians learn how to maintain these tanks that they've been given and all in that line. So that's probably...
Mark, who's maintaining them now? Are we maintaining them over there? Do we have boots on the ground? That's what I'm hearing. We're already
No,
there.
I hear
boots on the
we have
ground. We
boots on
do.
the ground. I even hear we have soldiers over there.
Yeah, we do.
I think we have what they call advisors on the ground, Lee.
Yes, quote unquote.
We probably have more than that. Whatever they're telling us, Nick, we have more.
No, they don't want to tell us anything because it's covert operations over there. You know,
We know from the releases of the.
I mean, do you really see a lot of
they're lying to us.
As we speak, there is no single Abrams tank in Ukraine. And
Not now, but it will be.
being prepared to defend, there were flash of 31 Abrams tanks, but it's going to happen later in the summer, maybe in the fall. But supposedly before the year end, they will be delivered.
Tasha, we don't have any there now.
No, there is none. Not even.
None.
So what do they call the ones? They just rename them like all these definitions are changing, since the pandemic. So they just rename tanks as whatever.
No. Come on.
Oh,
Leopard
no, yeah.
are there. Leopards are coming. Canada is sending Leopards. Poland, Germany, several countries. Now, US doesn't have Leopards. Leopards are very good tanks. In some ways, they are better than Abrams, and they're very good for fights on Ukrainian territory. Abrams are more complicated machines. They're heavier. But they will be delivered at least 31, as I know. So the people who will use them, they have to be trained how to use them. So there is nothing unusual about it. Oh yeah, there is Biden corruption. That's all Biden organized, and they're all skimming money of Ukraine, and they're making millions.
Oh, we already knew that. I mean,
Yeah, okay. So, but that's a different story. We're talking about two different stories.
It really
You want
is
to
the
talk
same
about Biden
story.
and his corruption? Go ahead and do it. But why you are trying
Well,
to?
I wasn't going to waste my time. It sort of gotten to the point where it's just common knowledge, that nobody disbelieves that the Biden family isn't corrupt now.
Well, we have in the United States, well, not me, but you have certain problems because on one hand, you have corrupted Biden and his government. On the other hand, you have completely collapsed the so-called Republican Party, which is completely now collapsing, and probably they have to close their tent,
Hey, Sasha,
party, and get on with something viable.
So the Canadian says.
no, so hold on a second, Sasha.
Kennedy's always
No, Canada's got its own issues. But Sasha, I've got a question for you because one of the ways that you try to win is you try to go after major blocks. And apparently there is a new candidate that has jumped into the Republican fray. I think he jumped in yesterday and everything. And that is Mr. Soares, who is the believe the mayor of Miami. So apparently there looks like the president, whoever it is going to come out of Florida because the lot of the candidates are Floridian based because we have Trump that has a Florida home. We've got DeSantis that hasn't officially announced, but they say he probably will be announcing after the his own state government is in its break and everything. And now we just had recently Soares announced, and part of what he is saying is that he can be more of the person that can address folks that are the common citizen, and that he can also address the very growing Hispanic population. So that is one of the things.
good for him. Good for him.
Mark is another entry. Larry Elder also entered there yesterday.
Oh, Larry Elder is entered as well from California.
He's in the game. He's in the fight.
Yeah, that's good. I like Larry Elder.
So
what about Murdoch? Murdoch is not going to be running for president?
I don't know that Murdoch can run because even though he's a new citizen, so I think that there are rules within what you can do in order to run. I don't know that as new of a citizen.
He has to be born in the United States. Right. And I don't think Murdoch was.
No, he was not born in the United States at all.
So that eliminates him.
No, and I know that Ivan yesterday or Tuesday had talked about the sports stuff that was going on, and you're talking about things that are maybe important or not important. But one of the stories that I was going to get to that a lot of folks are getting at least some moral support from is that in a city that is occupied, because it is one of those that is occupied, there's a group of women soccer players that are continuing their matches on a regular basis. So that is definitely being some inspiration that is coming from that eastern port city. So they are members of the Maripol women's soccer team. So apparently they are still going to continue to play at the devastated field, even though the city is under occupation, as a form of protest and all in that space. So they are doing that regularly, and they open the games with a moment of silence for those who died because of the Russians' invasion of Ukraine.
That's nice.
It is. I thought so as well. The question I was going to ask, because it was an interesting thing. We've been starting something recently, and I'm gonna get off the news for a second, but not totally off the news. We've been airing in the events page various speeches and everything, as well as some concerts, some jazz concerts. Sasha will be glad to hear that, and even some classical concerts. I think the classical concert is playing right now on the events page and all of that space. But we've also been airing some speeches and some lectures as well. One of the lectures was by a physics person. The other lecture, and I think that was at UNC, maybe it was at, but and then the person that was doing one of the lectures in Alabama was Reverend Barber. And one of the things he did in his speech that we aired was talk about the various sermons that go on in the country. They did apparently an analysis of the sermons in the country. And do you know what subject did not register at all, Lee and Dan, that apparently is very prominent within the Bible, but apparently when they registered and looked at these 50,000 sermons, there was one topic that did not register at all. Reverend Barber was somewhat shocked by that. I'm very shocked by that, but I was just wondering if the two of you can guess what topic was not addressed whatsoever.
We'll let you tell us so that we can suspend our curiosity.
Poverty. Poverty was not addressed by any of the sermons whatsoever. They addressed a lot of the things around money. They addressed a lot of things around a number of other things, but poverty was not addressed in one of the sermons whatsoever, even though if you look at the Bible, poverty is all over the conversation within the Bible.
It is.
They didn't, Mark, they didn't address charity at all?
Always be among us.
Apparently they did not address it at all. I had to get more of the further study, but in the way that the speech was addressed, it seemed like they did not touch on poverty or charity or anything within these 50,000. It was done by like one of those think tank organizations, and they literally combed through the entirety of those sermons. And yeah, poverty was not coming up whatsoever.
Wow.
It used to be the
they do say that how you handle the least of these is how you can judge a society and a culture, whether that is a world.
No, I get that all that, Mark. Mark, it used to be the person in the church reading a house of worship used to cover that. Now people just rely on the government to do that.
Right, and that's part of the issue as well. Is who is in charge and why are they not addressing these issues and everything? So I'm just curious about that. But speaking of poverty and
why should they if the government's going to take care of it, right?
Government doesn't take care of it. There are a lot of organizations that are doing things that are not government bound and government run that are addressing various issues and everything. I mean, I think that we're going to hear a lot of that when the gentleman comes in on Monday, because like I said, he's talking about things that we can do with our own waste and everything. And I do remember a program that actually was there where you are, Lee, in New York, where a lot of that wasteful food that is done at various games, whether that's the basketball games or the football games, was actually donated to a lot of the organizations so that the food did not go to waste. It was a program that they put in place several decades back that I think is still going on even to this day, because we do know that before.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But I know a lot of people were not doing that, so they've been trying to find ways to actually not just have the food go to waste, whether that's in a restaurant or whether that's in a number of other places. But getting back to politics and all in that sense, and particularly economics, everybody always talks about Elon Musk and how much money Elon Musk has and how much influence Elon Musk has and all in that space. But now that Elon Musk has lost these billions of dollars, is Elon Musk going to be kind of like Putin, that he's not going to be a power and a force in the very near future, or is he still going to be a force to be reckoned with, even though he just lost all his money and got this bad?
He didn't lose all his money.
I didn't say he lost all his money. I said lost all this money. I didn't say.
No, it's going to be. It's not going to be even a.
It's
a
just
mark.
the value of his company went down. It's not like he's
It's
got
not
all
even
this money in the
money.
bank account and all of a sudden it's gone. He has stock in SpaceX, and then the valuation of SpaceX goes down, and hence his net worth goes down. But he didn't lose really anything. You know,
Well,
It's not going to affect his. It's not going to affect his living.
Net
What?
worth is going down because
yeah, his net worth goes down, but it's not like he's got money in the bank account that just got taken away.
no,
from him.
he didn't physically lose any money. What?
You're right.
overall evaluation
Yeah,
of
it's the valuation of
space
SpaceX.
is going down. But a spectacular way of which valuation of the company shoot up 1,000% in one day is the Dominion machines. It's a
Well,
small,
hey, did you see the latest on Dominion? What happened was that it was funded by private equity investors. 78%
yeah,
of the funds came from private equity investors who invested Dominion to maintain the lawsuit. So these private equity investors made out like bandits, and so frankly did the law firm, because the law.
Well, and many of them were Democratic, rich Democrats, right?
Well, I don't know what their background was, but certainly they're not lying Republicans at Fox, that's for sure. So the thing is, they got it handed to them. One thing I have to give Tucker Carlson some credit for, he came out and basically, came clean with the fact that Fox was screwing around with this whole election thing. Larry Elder is a kind of interesting cat. Mark, see if you can get him on our network. He's actually he's a radio host lawyer.
No, I know exactly what Ariel is. I actually had
he's a radio guy, and he's also
a radio guy. That's a conservative radio guy. I actually had the opportunity. Unfortunately, Leo, be disappointed to hear I was turned down, but I am a registered person with a certain voiceover company that allows you to do voiceovers and narrations. So I did apply, and it's actually owned by Amazon, but I did apply to actually narrate that particular book of his story. So I saw his book. I actually know a little bit of that story because I actually had the opportunity to apply for that, but it was one that I did not get in that space. So maybe they'll.
Larry has an amazing story in terms of his childhood, his rags to riches, and what have you. He did not come from wealth. Yeah,
No, he didn't come from wealth.
amazing story.
Michigan Law School. He worked
Yes.
for years, a very good law firm. Then he created his own firm. I mean, the guy's a bit of an entrepreneur, as well as now on a radio talk show host. So he's perfect for what we do, Mark. So we should.
Yeah.
No, I'll definitely reach out to him. I'll reach out to definitely the guy that was the Pursuit of Happiness guy as well, because Mr. Gardner is still around as well. So I've reached out to both of them, and we'll continue to reach out to both of them. But speaking of things that don't get covered, except for about maybe 3 to 4 minutes of the other news sources, but it's not covered in vastness, and it's definitely not covered from the climate aspect. But y'all will be glad to know that all these organizations have their own reports, and they have their own report cards. So we now have the report card from the weather. Yes, the World Meteorological Organization said last year really was as bad as it seemed when people were muddling through it. So they have talked about the killer floods, the droughts, and the heat waves that hit around the world. And they said that it cost the world billions of dollars. So they talked about everything from global ocean heat to acidity levels hitting record highs, and the Antarctic sea ice and European Alps glaciers reaching record low amounts, according to the the United Nations Climate Agency's State of Global Climate 2022 report, which was just released recently. So I know a lot of folks dismiss climate change and dismiss the fact that the winter can in some places be almost non-existent, and the fact that summer weather can come at weird times and other things can happen that don't seem to be normal in the patterns the way that they used to be, and all of that stuff. Matter of fact, they said that, and you'll be glad to know this, it wasn't necessarily the United States, but United Kingdom, France, Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Belgium, Luxembourg, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, and New Zealand had their hottest years on record. So is there something else so that we need to be starting to cover more of, Nick, and everything? Because I know we like to cover things that are a little bit different and aren't covered by the national media. And I don't know that the weather and the climate has been covered all that well either. But I was just wondering your thoughts on this new report, because apparently they're saying that, hey, the world's about to get even a little bit crazier with its weather.
I think it got covered a lot. In other words, it may be overcovered when it comes to the climate change. And you're always going to have your climate deniers. It represents, at least when I see them, the IPSS, it's like 3% of scientists and a very small portion of the population who suffer from, opposite defiance disorder, otherwise known as ODD. They're going to disagree no matter what you say. So they don't want to believe in it. They're going to stick to the 1 or 2 scientists in the world.
That's because they're at odds. And there aren't 1 or 2, actually, there are hundreds. And
Well,
so,
hey, Dan, it represents less than 3% of the scientists who actually believe
well, I know, but you understated the
about
numbers, right? I'm
anthropomorphic.
just trying to call you on your
You know,
factual
3%.
inaccuracy.
It's not. It's 3% of the scientists who say.
Okay, so how many scientists are there in the world?
Lord knows there's probably thousands of them. So
Yeah, I know. So no,
Yeah.
tens of
let's say
thousands,
there's
right?
10,000 of them. You got 3%. So you have
Yeah,
several
yeah.
hundred of them that
Several hundred of them, right?
yeah, right. Several hundred
Exactly.
that go, well, it's just random. You know, it has nothing to do
Well,
with.
no, it's not random. It's cyclic.
And
It's cyclic.
unfortunately,
Hey, Nick, you remember back in
I
the
go with the
70s?
majority.
You were there. I was there.
I go with the majority. Okay.
Yeah,
The
see, we were
97
going. We were going to have nuclear winter, or the Earth was cooling, and we were going to have all this. So climate change then was the Earth was cooling. We weren't having global warming. We were have global cooling. Now we have global warming. So what is it, Nick? So now they just say it's climate change. Well, what I think it is mostly the natural cycles of the Earth, and things are changing in the Earth. We know that. We know we have a leak in the hull of our oceans, and we know we have more water under the crust than we do on above the surface.
I don't buy that at all because, you know, when I was a kid, they said, well, just throw your turds into the river and the river will naturally clean it. And we used to do that.
Yeah, you did.
We threw our trash out. Hey, look,
Yeah.
it's not going to hurt the environment. Come on. It does.
Well, I mean, yeah, we have to be responsible.
When you have what happens is conservatives
Earth,
just
right?
don't want to be responsible. You
So
have
I agree with
billion
you with that.
8
No matter
billion
whether
people
there's
installed
climate
it.
change or not, we should be
Sorry.
responsible stewards of our world. That goes without saying, right? But this radical climate crap cost us hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. While China is polluting the world, is polluting the world, gets away with crap.
I mean,
So we're paying for the sins of the world, right?
Yeah, well, China and the U.S. are the big polluters. I mean,
China's the biggest polluter now because they don't care.
Number one, but we don't want to say China doesn't like anybody to say anything against China. Okay?
Well, they're number one. They're number one.
And the United States is number two.
They ought to be proud. They're number one. They're number one.
They're number one.
Well, they just said that they're proud to be number two in population. That's what they said yesterday. They said that they don't mind being number two in population.
There are cities because I'm asthmatic. I have to look at the cities whether I can visit them or not because some of them are so bloody polluted. I just can't go there because I can't breathe in their stupid cities. New Delhi's one of them in India. Beijing is another. The capitals of those countries, and it's not caused by random events. It's caused by the fact they got automobiles choking the city, and they have pollution all over the bloody place. And
industrial pollution.
Yeah, so they have industrial pollution. They're just polluted like crazy. And one time LA was that way, and they cleaned it up for the most part, and so was Denver.
Well, speaking of places getting cleaned
well, it's
up,
just poor planning on their part.
But speaking of places, part of the reason they cleaned up LA and part of the reason they cleaned up Atlanta, ironically, was something that is getting ready to come to Paris next year. Because a lot of times they will clean up the places and they will hide things that are scars on the city when there are major international events going on.
Well, that's what the Chinese did in Beijing.
In LA, we're definitely seeing that in Paris because apparently Paris is cleaning up.
Paris, they're going to host the Olympics and they're going to allow the Russians in. Okay, if I'm an American, I am not going to Paris and parade around with the Russians, given their current behavior. Normally,
you're not going to pay $99 to $2,960, which is the price of the opening ceremony.
No. The United States should not pander, nor should the West, to bloody Russia because of their invasion of Ukraine. Okay,
Ukraine.
No more French dips. No more French
40 years ago, after Russia invaded in Afghanistan, then all Western countries refused to participate in Moscow Olympiad. No Western country participated there. So I don't.
But France is going to allow Russia in, Sasha.
France.
Okay, so the Russians are going to be there.
So you want the United States has to nuke France altogether. and just eliminate them and the Paris and their Olympic Games.
Sasha, we're too busy. Sasha, we're too busy buying tickets because apparently France has also got a lottery system, and they got 4 million applications that they have received for folks to buy tickets for next year's Paris Olympics. So the local organizing committee said that earlier today. So they're hoping to sell 1.3 million tickets, and they've already going to have this big draw.
They can sell billion tickets. It doesn't mean a thing. Because if the West will do the right thing and boycott France for the Paris Olympiad as long as the Russian or Belarusian athletes participate under any conditions, under any flag, under anything, even if they would allow even entry to France during the Olympiad, period, boycott 100%. And the France, they know what it is, and they will give up very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, the Ukrainians are agreeing with you because they renewed their push to keep Russian athletes out of the Olympics on Friday ahead of the International Olympic Committee board meeting next week, that's when they're supposed to set the framework for their return to the international sports event. So
Russia should not be allowed. It's not a country. Okay, let's get real. They don't have free press. They don't have free elections. They don't have free anything. In other words, they violate human rights. It's not a bloody country. It's just a group of thugs who happen to be in charge of what is purported to be a country. So
that's pretty much how we are now.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
I'm not going to debate that.
No, hold on a second, because Thomas Bach, the IOC president, said that he's going to resist political influence in sports. Good luck with that. And indicated that next week's meeting could discuss issues including Russian athletes' military links. And they said that they are going to seek to bar athletes who have actively supported the war, but hasn't said exactly how the process would work. So apparently, if they're in the military, they can't participate. Maybe they got out of the military.
Well, okay, so the ones that actively support the war can't participate. The ones that don't support the war, Russians shoot. So there shouldn't be anybody participating.
Best thing to do is exclude Russia. That's
period. Because even let's imagine that somebody honestly does not support the war. At least he says so. Okay. But he pays his taxes. His taxes are supporting the Russian war machine. So even if he says so one way, his actions are exactly in opposite of what he's saying. So why he should be allowed? And by the way, I want to tell you something, that there were many cases where Ukrainian sportsmen, including part of the Olympic teams, they were killed on the front lines. So who killed them? Russians or people from Mars or from Jupiter? Russians killed them. Why would you allow a country that is killing Ukrainian people, including sportsmen, including members of the Ukrainian Olympic team? Why would you allow the thugs to participate in the Olympics?
I wouldn't.
Well, why should we let China or India participate?
A lot of other countries.
The ones that are supporting them.
Hey, I got a question for y'all. Y'all gonna tease me for asking this. Hey, no second. I got a question to ask y'all, and y'all gonna tease me for asking y'all this. But by the same logic and everything, I want y'all to follow me and see if I'm making sense. By the same logic, then there is a major sporting event that is going on currently, that being the NBA championships and also the hockey championships. Not that many African Americans playing hockey, but plenty in the NBA playing the NBA championship. So by that same logic, since a lot of those players have also been complaining about the injustices that were going on in our society, meaning the United States society, then the entirety of the NBA players should go on boycott, right?
What injustices are we talking about?
And what is it now you want to complain about?
Complained about have joined in this fight along with Black Lives Matter, along with the
they're all just babies. They're all just babies. They got their pound of flesh. Come on, they got their mansions. Leave us alone. Yeah,
they
got their.
Mark, they give you $1 million a year to go play basketball or show up in the NBA.
Yeah, exactly. So don't shove it.
Push that
really.
right down the injustice toilet. You know.
Yeah,
I mean,
But I'm
yeah,
saying,
exactly.
my question is, and this is to everybody:
injustices are to
if
other
you live,
people.
if you live
Definitely
by the
not at
convictions, I'm just saying that these players claim to have convictions and saying that this is, excuse me, an issue that they are concerned about. If you live by that and you are actually saying that that is a truism according to what you are fighting for, then it seems to me that a number of these players, whether it's Harden or Embiid or a number of the other players, that
They like their money more. They like their money.
I'm not crying for Harden or any of those players,
No,
man.
really.
Okay, come on. These people are, I hate to say it, they're bloody rich. Okay,
That's it.
and that's the way it is.
no, and I'm not doubting that they're rich. My question is, if you are a person that is got
The
these-
only reason you guys get away with this,
no, I'm just saying, but if you have these
white men can't
convictions,
jump.
if you have these
That's the only
convictions
reason.
and you
You
actually
can't
believe in the
get away with
convictions,
this.
shouldn't you back the convictions with the action? That's my question, and I don't know the answer to that because there are some folks that would.
Well, I know the answer to that question.
Mark, very few athletes are principled. Very few.
Yeah.
You had that one guy in his freedom, and he was ostracized because he spoke out.
Yeah,
That-
you're talking about the guy that, and World Be Free. That he literally changed his name because he wanted to talk about some political issues. To that was literally what he changed his name to, was World Be Free.
Be free. God.
In his canter, in his freedom, right? Very few athletes really will put their contracts on the line.
And that's my point: is that if they're going to do that, if they're going to talk the talk, they need to walk the walk. That was kind of what I was.
Well,
saying.
yeah, but hey, let's put it this way, Mark. If you were an athlete making millions of dollars, you would have no principles either.
Can't say
No,
that. I
that's
might
not
be
really
the
true.
same thing that LeBron and other athletes are, because there are athletes that actually do have some principles and bring back to their community, and they do a number of other things in
Oh
various
yeah, but they're
communities.
not. They'd be stupid to cut their source of income off. Otherwise, they lose their power.
Well, I mean, there are, speaking of cutting off your access to power, because of the Dylan Mulvaney situation, and I was reading another article earlier today, there are literally bars that are saying that they are not going to serve Budweiser. Budweiser just recently did a commercial that tried to paint themselves back as the all-American beer
Sasha,
and all of that space. So maybe Budweiser is done. Just like we're talking about being done, maybe Budweiser is done as a brand, because apparently they are saying that they are totally done.
Sasha, Ukraine people are waiting for you. On
Okay.
the other show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, see,
Sasha, have a good weekend.
The
Thank
Budweiser
you.
folks. See you later, Sasha.
Bye
Take
bye.
care, Sasha.
Budweiser should just give all of its beer to the Ukrainians, and go out
The
of
beer?
business. Yeah, exactly. Or better yet, the Russians, and get them all soused. I mean, of course, they don't drink beer; they drink vodka, right? So
Well, we're getting ready to wrap up because the Ukrainian show is about to start. But my
Yeah.
understanding of Budweiser is that Budweiser was and I'm going to tease our Australian who's not here, but Budweiser was the foster of the beers, meaning that it was a weak beer in the first place. So I don't know that it's going to get anybody sauced, no matter how many they had and all of that space, because it's not supposed to be a very strong brand from what I've understood. But Lee can correct me if I'm wrong as we get ready to head out the door. But I've always heard that.
well,
They had a good
that'll be
brand.
good. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe
I can't speak about the product, Mark, because I don't drink beer. But in terms of branding, they had a product that was well known. But they just, excuse the expression, they just pissed it down the toilet.
Well, it depends on how
that's
they.
a good.
Depends on how they bounce back. There's a
Thanks,
notion of something called damage control, and if they bounce back with some good damage control, they may come back stronger than ever. But on that note, we're going to get out of here. We're going to talk about definitely economics and climate, and even things around green climate on tomorrow. Monday, because we do have that Monday guest.
Oh goodness!
Y'all have a good weekend.
Wait, one more thing. Mark,
What's
can
that, Nick?
you correct Ukraine, because my sound just went out.
I'll go over there.
Okay, thanks. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Have a good.
Take care. Bye. See you guys next week.
Bye bye.